Let's get started with our first news. Khamzat Chimaev on Jon Jones. Jon Jones has now responded to comments made by Khamzat Chimaev, and this exchange has MMA fans buzzing. Although Chimaev has in the past boldly claimed that he could beat Jones in a potential matchup, there's clearly no bad blood between them. In fact, both fighters have consistently shown nothing but deep respect for each other's accomplishments inside the cage. Back in 2022, during an interview with the Schmo and Henry Cejudo, Chimaev was asked a simple but revealing question: "Who's your top MMA fighter of all time?" Without hesitation, he replied, "Jon Jones, of course." The host immediately responded by saying, "Jon Jones is actually mine too." Chimaev then expanded on his admiration, saying, Nobody is like him." Chimaev went on to describe a particular training scenario with Alex, someone he clearly respects, and said, "I did work all my training and we did it with Alex. I know how good he is, and if Jon Jones could stop that guy, it's scary, you know? And he didn't beat easy fighters. These were crazy good fighters with knockout power, and on the ground they were good too. Everything was like perfect with that guy." This wasn't just about Jones' technical skill, it was about his ability to handle dangerous opponents across different styles. Chimaev made it clear that Jon Jones wasn't just winning, he was dominating fighters who had knockout power, high-level grappling, and well-rounded games. That combination of skills and dominance in Chimaev's eyes is what makes Jones so special. He also brought up Daniel Cormier, saying, "You know how he pressures. He's got good wrestling, good boxing, and a mentality to just pressure the fighters and kill them, you know? And Jon stopped that guy as well." Cormier is widely regarded as one of the toughest, most resilient champions in MMA history. So for Jones to not only beat him but do it convincingly adds even more weight to Chimaev's praise. Then came perhaps Chimaev's boldest statement in this conversation. "You can't say Kamaru is better than him. If he stays in the game, he has to be pound for pound #1. For Chimaev, this isn't a debate. Jon Jones's track record, skill set, and championship dominance place him firmly at the top if he remains active. What's interesting is how this mutual admiration contrasts with some of the more heated rivalries we see in the sport. Both men are ultra-competitive, both have egos as any elite fighter does, but here the conversation is rooted in respect, not trash talk. Chimaev has openly admitted he'd fight Jones if the opportunity ever came, but it's clear that in his mind it would be against the best to ever do it. When Jon Jones heard about Chimaev's words, he didn't dismiss them or fire back with bravado. Instead, he responded with appreciation, acknowledging the compliment from one of the sport's most talked about rising stars. It's rare to see two fighters from different weight classes, different generations, and with such different fighting styles share this kind of mutual admiration. But that's exactly what makes this story stand out, a modern-day example that respect in MMA is still alive and well. Before moving to the next news, we have one quick request for you. We're constantly working on improving our content to earn your love and support. That's why we'd truly appreciate it if you could take just a moment to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Moving on to our second news, Tom Aspinall starts training camp. After months of uncertainty, speculation, and constant questions from fans, Tom Aspinall has finally begun his next official training camp. This is big news for the heavyweight division, because for quite some time no one knew when or who the British champion would face next. If you've been following Aspinall's journey over the last year, and honestly at this point every MMA fan has, you know that he hasn't fought since July of 2024. Originally, many believed that his next fight would be against Jon Jones in what would have been one of the most high-profile heavyweight clashes in years. The hype was real, and fans were already debating how that fight might play out. But then came the curveball. Jon Jones confirmed that he was not going to be Aspinall's next opponent after announcing his retirement. Well, sort of retiring. That announcement changed the landscape completely. With Jones out of the picture, the UFC had to move quickly to book a fight that still had the star power and high stakes to keep fans invested. The answer? Cyril Gane. The French heavyweight, widely regarded as one of the slickest strikers in the division, was officially announced as Aspinall's opponent for October 25th. And just like that, the wheels were in motion for a massive heavyweight showdown. More recently, Aspinall's team released a short but exciting clip that confirmed what fans have been waiting to hear: training camp is officially underway. Seeing the champion back in full preparation mode immediately reignited the buzz around this fight. Now, while this might mark the official start of camp, Aspinall himself has pointed out that he hasn't exactly been sitting still over the past year. Speaking to the media, he said, "We can expect an improved version of me. I've had a year to train, I've had a year to test my skills and improve, and I'm going to show everyone what that's all about. That statement alone has fans curious. If Aspinall was already a dominant force before, what kind of threat will an even sharper version present? Stylistically, this fight is fascinating. On paper, it's a matchup between one of the most well-rounded heavyweights in Aspinall and one of the most technically precise strikers in Ganey. Fans are already debating whether this will be a fight that goes the distance or if we'll see a dramatic finish. With Aspinall's speed, grappling, and fight IQ combined with Ganey's footwork and striking, this is truly a high-level heavyweight clash that could deliver fireworks. And it's not just the fighting skills that are making headlines. Aspinall recently revealed that he's in the process of getting a new tattoo on his neck, an eye-catching move that has sparked conversation among fans. Whether it's a symbol of personal meaning or just a bold statement, it's another sign that Aspinall is stepping into this fight with full confidence, not just in his abilities but in his presence as the reigning champion. With training camp in motion and the countdown to October 25th officially on, the heavyweight division is bracing for one of its most intriguing matchups of the year. Moving on to another big headline, Dricus du Plessis' team is under fire following some very bold comments made in the lead-up to UFC 319. Just days before this highly anticipated event, du Plessis' camp has found itself at the center of a controversy that stirred up reactions across the MMA community. On the UFC Countdown show, DDP's head coach didn't hold back when talking about Khamzat Chimaev. He went full throttle, calling Chimaev's striking horrible, and labeling him a one-dimensional fighter whose only real weapon is his wrestling. The issue? That assessment simply doesn't hold up when looking at Chimaev's actual performances. Yes, wrestling has always been Chimaev's bread and butter, but his striking is far from ineffective. In fact, he's proven on multiple occasions that his hands are dangerous and his stand-up game can be explosive when needed. Those remarks by DDP's coach not only raised eyebrows but also rubbed many people the wrong way, including respected voices in the sport like Big John McCarthy and Josh Thompson. Both analysts were quick to push back, stressing that this kind of public trash talk from a coach isn't just unnecessary, it can actively work against their own fighter. Big John broke it down into two clear points. First, if du Plessis wins the fight, the victory could be diminished in the public's eyes because the coach had already dismissed Chimaev's skills. The win might be seen as less impressive, especially if the narrative going in was that Chimaev had glaring weaknesses. Second, and perhaps more importantly, McCarthy emphasized that this isn't how a world-class coach should operate at the highest level of the sport. While fighters themselves might engage in verbal warfare to hype a fight, coaches typically maintain a certain level of mutual respect, both for the opponent and for the sport itself. At the elite level, that respect is part of the culture. Big John didn't mince words, saying, he also said Chimaev's got terrible stand-up, which is not true. I was really surprised. I'm gonna say it right now. I hate when a coach starts talking about an opponent like that. I think it's the dumbest thing they can do. It does not help your fighter in any fashion. You could think he's the worst thing in the world, that's fine. That's between you and your fighter. But when you're talking publicly, you talk about how great he is. Because if your fighter does win, people will say, yeah, but you said he was no good anyway. So don't do that. Talk about all the strengths and the things he does well. If you don't want to talk about what you think he's not good at, don't. But for his coach to come out saying those things, I think it's crazy. With tensions already running high ahead of UFC 319, these comments have only added more fuel to the fire. Whether this was a calculated psychological tactic or just a slip in professionalism, the MMA world will be watching closely to see how this war of words translates inside the octagon. Now let's move on to another interesting headline. Daniel Cormier and Chael Sonnen have been going back and forth over a hot topic in the MMA world: whether we'll ever see a three-division UFC champion. It's a debate that has sparked a lot of curiosity among fans, and right now, two names seem to be at the center of this conversation: Alex Pereira and Ilia Topuria. Chael Sonnen is optimistic. In his view, we're getting closer than ever to seeing someone pull off this historic feat. He believes that if the right matchups line up, the dream of a fighter holding belts in three different divisions could actually happen sooner rather than later. Chael's excitement is particularly centered on Pereira's size, skill, and knockout power, as well as Topuria's rapid rise through the ranks. But Daniel Cormier isn't convinced. While he fully acknowledges the greatness of both fighters, he sees some very real roadblocks, especially for Topuria. DC pointed out that moving up to welterweight is a whole different challenge, as the fighters there are simply massive compared to featherweights. In his words, Ilya would hit a wall if he tried to take on those huge welterweights, mentioning names like Shavkat Rakhmonov, who bring a completely different level of size, strength, and physicality into the cage. Cormier also reminded fans that even becoming a two-division champion is an extremely rare accomplishment, with only a handful of fighters ever managing to pull it off in UFC history. 3 divisions? I don't know, man, he said, making it clear that in his eyes the odds are stacked heavily against anyone attempting it today. Chimaev, however, countered that with the right circumstances, the path is not impossible. He used a hypothetical scenario to make his point. If Islam Makhachev and Ilia Topuria were ever to fight, Topuria should insist the bout take place for Islam's lightweight belt rather than dropping Islam down to featherweight. That way, if Ilia were to win, he'd already have 2 belts and could later pursue a third at welterweight. Sonnen also speculated about Alex Pereira's future. With Pereira already conquering middleweight and light heavyweight, Chimaev believes the Brazilian could move up to heavyweight sooner rather than later, perhaps even after his next fight, and has the power and skill set to become champion there as well. Still, DC remains firm in his stance. It's so hard to do. The timing, the matchups, the body changes, everything has to be perfect. And even then, you're facing monsters in every division. For now, the dream of a 3-division champion remains just that, a dream. But with stars like Pereira and Topuria continuing to rise, it's a dream that MMA fans will keep debating. Next up, Alexander Volkanovski has issued a clear warning to Kai Asakura ahead of UFC 319. While Asakura enters the bout as a sizable favorite on the betting lines against veteran Tim Elliott, Volkanovski believes the fight may not be as one-sided as many fans and oddsmakers expect. Right now, depending on which sportsbook you check, Asakura's odds range from -340 to -270, which is a pretty big spread in his favor. This will be Asakura's first fight since suffering a loss to Alexandre Pantoja, a defeat that derailed his momentum and handed him a harsh welcome at the elite level of the UFC's flyweight division. If he were to drop this one, it would mark his second straight UFC defeat, something that could seriously stall his hype. Volkanovski, speaking on his YouTube channel, explained why Elliott could be a real problem for Asakura despite the age difference and the betting odds. "That's a pretty heavy favorite," Volk said. "Elliott could easily shoot for takedowns and cause damage. Even if Asakura gets back up, the rounds could still go Elliott's way. I still lean towards Asakura, but don't be surprised if the underdog gets it done." For context, Tim Elliott is 38 years old, but that number alone doesn't tell the full story. The veteran is still extremely crafty, durable, and relentless when it comes to implementing his game plan. His awkward movement, unorthodox striking, and high-paced wrestling can frustrate even high-level opponents. Just recently, Elliott secured a win over Tagir Ulanbekov, a rising contender who has been making waves in the division. That win reminded everyone that Elliott is far from done and can still compete with top talent. Volkanovski's main concern for Asakura seems to be the stylistic challenge Elliott presents. While Asakura is known for his clean technical striking and knockout power, Elliott thrives in chaos. He's the type of fighter who will drag you into uncomfortable positions, constantly shoot for takedowns, and make every round a grind. Even if Asakura defends most of those takedowns, the mere attempts combined with Elliott's control time could sway the judges in a close fight. This matchup is a classic striker versus grappler dynamic, but with the added twist that Elliott's striking is unpredictable enough to create openings for his wrestling. Volkanovski's takeaway is clear. Asakura is still the favorite for a reason, but overlooking Elliott could be a huge mistake. The fight might be a lot closer than the betting odds suggest, and fans shouldn't rule out the possibility of an upset at UFC 319. And finally, Jon Jones may have a better chance of making a comeback than Conor McGregor. Both men have publicly expressed interest in competing on the UFC's planned White House card next year, an event that would be historic in its own right. Reports have even suggested that both fighters have re-entered the promotion's testing pool, which is typically a major step toward a return. However, not everyone is convinced that we'll see both of them back in the octagon. Veteran UFC fighter and analyst Matt Brown recently shared his perspective, and in his view, the odds of Jon Jones fighting again are far higher than those of McGregor stepping back into the cage. Brown explained, "Jon's so-called retirement, was it really a retirement? He's an interesting guy, a wild card. I'm not sure he's done." Brown pointed out that Jones has never been one to follow the standard script when it comes to his career. Whether it's taking extended breaks, moving up in weight, or dealing with controversies, Jones has always had an unpredictable streak, but that unpredictability also means the door to his return is never truly closed. As for McGregor, Brown sees things differently. Conor never officially retired, but he's basically retired, he said. The only chance he comes back is if he's not self-aware. In Brown's eyes, McGregor's lifestyle, business ventures, and long layoff have all contributed to a situation where his fighting career feels like it's already in the rearview mirror, even if the Irishman occasionally teases a comeback on social media. Brown also compared the two fighters' unique skill sets and ability to compete after long absences. Jon Jones can do all this stuff and still beat Daniel Cormier, Brown remarked, highlighting Jones's rare talent and ability to perform at the highest level even after setbacks. Conor's special too, but he's not a Jon Jones special. That difference in competitive durability, according to Brown, is another reason why Jones has a more realistic path back. There's also the matter of motivation. McGregor's enormous net worth means that financially another fight might not change his life. The UFC's biggest global star has already cashed in through blockbuster fights, endorsements, and his whiskey brand. On the other hand, Jones, while financially successful, could stand to gain a significant boost to his wealth by returning, particularly if the fight is a high-profile main event on such a historic card. That's why, Brown concluded, I think Bones fighting again is more likely. In short, while both comebacks would grab headlines and electrify the MMA world, Matt Brown believes the smart money is on Jon Jones making the walk to the octagon first. Whether that prediction holds true remains to be seen, but with both men back in the testing pool, the speculation is only going to heat up in the coming months.